Good morning, everybody, from Ground Zero in New York City. It is Wednesday, September the 11th, 2002, a little bit after 8 o'clock in the morning here in New York City. I'm Simon Marks, and you are watching exclusive coverage in high definition on HDNet of the ceremonies that are about to get underway here to mark the 12-month anniversary of last September 11th's attacks on America. Here at Ground Zero, people are gathering for what is going to be a deeply emotional and moving day. Throughout the night, bagpipers from across the 5 boroughs of New York have been heading to this site, and shortly they will take up their positions for this morning's ceremonies that are expected to begin in about 45 minutes' time, with a moment of silence to mark the loss of more than 2,800 people who died in the attacks on the World Trade Center just 12 months ago. If you take a look at the site that is today and will perhaps forever be known simply as Ground Zero, you can get a sense of the scale of the tragedy that occurred here 1 year ago. Ground Zero is 16 acres in size, and in what is surely one of this extraordinary city's most remarkable achievements, it is now completely clear of the debris and rubble that was created when those 2 airplanes plowed into the Twin Towers 12 months ago. It took 8.5 months to accomplish the task. 1.8 million tons of debris had to be cleared. It took 100,000 truckloads to get the job done. And of course, everything had to be carefully sifted and examined for any evidence of the remains and the personal effects of those who died here. Many New Yorkers are now wondering what the city should do with the site that we have all come to know as Ground Zero. That debate lies in the future, and we will talk about it a little bit later on. But today we and the rest of the country will pause once again to remember those who died here. Just over 2,800 at Ground Zero, an estimated total of 3,044 people nationwide. And for many of those who died, their families will in a few short hours get their first opportunity to set foot on what is now considered sacred ground here, the terrain on which the Twin Towers used to sit. The families and friends of those who died here have never had the opportunity before to visit the place in which their loved ones died. Today, the Mayor of New York, Michael Bloomberg, has invited them to come here to place roses on the site, roses that will be collected and stored eventually to become part of the permanent memorial that will be built here. It is a staggeringly beautiful day here in New York, bright and sunny, a little wind, very similar to the day that dawned here just 12 months ago, but so different in so many ways. And a little bit earlier on, we were able to capture some of the images of dawn breaking over the city, and it was a truly remarkable sight as the sun came up in New York, and the New Yorkers who are descending on this site were all waking up and getting ready to attend the ceremonies that will take place here. As I say, bagpipers have been making their way to this site from across New York's 5 boroughs throughout the night. Shortly, they will head down the ramp and into Ground Zero. The processionals are led by the pipe and drum corps from each of the 5 governmental agencies that played such a pivotal role in the immediate aftermath of the tragedy last September the 11th. The Fire Department of New York City, which lost 343 of its members. The Port Authority, the New York Police Department, and also the City Corrections and Sanitations Department, which played such a prominent role in helping to clear the rubble of this site. But if you take a look now at Ground Zero, you can see a large number of New Yorkers gathering on the lip of the site, with those who will be participating in this morning's ceremonies here gathering within the site itself. The ceremonies get underway just around 8:45 with a moment of silence. After that, Governor George Pataki of New York will be reading from the Gettysburg Address. Then Michael Bloomberg, the Mayor of New York, introduces the reading of the names, a reading of the names of all those people who died here last September the 11th. Mayor Rudolph Giuliani begins that reading, the former mayor of New York who played such a prominent role in the days and hours after the attacks occurred. There will be a pause for a second moment of silence just before 10 o'clock in the morning. That was the time at which the South Tower of the World Trade Center collapsed. The reading of names will then continue, and then shortly before 10:30, taps will be played by a lone bugler. The Governor of New Jersey, James McGreevey, will read from the Declaration of Independence, and at 10:29, the moment at which the North Tower of the World Trade Center fell, the second tower, essentially stripping New York City of its most prominent and best-known landmark. At that point, bells will toll throughout the city, and they will toll for much of the day here as the people of New York continue to honor those people who died back on September the 11th.
Again today, we are a nation that mourns. Again today, we take into our hearts and minds those who perished on this site 1 year ago, and also those who came to toil in the rubble to bring order out of chaos, and those who throughout these 12 months have struggled to help us make sense of our despair. Now we join with our fellow Americans in a minute of silence, led by President George W. Bush from the South Lawn of the White House in Washington. "139 years ago, President Abraham Lincoln looked out at his wounded nation as he stood on a once beautiful field that had become its saddest and largest burial ground. Then it was Gettysburg. Today it is the World Trade Center, where we gather on native soil to share our common grief. Governor George E. Pataki.
Thank you, Mayor Bloomberg. 77 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation or any nation so conceived and so dedicated can long endure. We are met on a great battlefield of that war. We have come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those who here gave their lives that the nation might live. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this. But in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground. The brave men, living and dead, who struggled here, have consecrated it far beyond our poor powers to add or detract. The world will little note nor long remember what we say here. but it can never forget what they did here. It is for us, the living, rather to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they who fought here have thus far so nobly advanced. It is, rather, for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead, we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion. That we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth.
They were our neighbors, our husbands, our children, our sisters, our brothers, and our wives. They were our countrymen and our friends. They were us. Mayor Rudolph W. Giuliani.
Gordon M. Ama Jr. Edelmiro Abad. Maria Rose Abad. Andrew Anthony Abadi. Vincent Abadi. Lawrence Christopher Abel. Alona Abraham. William F. Abrahamson. Richard Anthony Acedo. Jesus Acevedo Rescand. Heinrich Bernard Ackerman. Paul Aquaviva. Donald Leroy Adams. Patrick Adams. Shannon Lewis Adams. Stephen George Adams. Ignatius Odo Adanga. Christy A. Adamo. Terrence E. Adderley, Jr. Sophia Boruwad Addo. Lee Allen Adler. Daniel Thomas Afflito. Emmanuel Akwazi Afuakwa. Alak Agarwal. Mokul Kumar Agarwala. Joseph Agnello. David Scott Agnes. Brian G. Ahern. Jeremiah Joseph Ahern. Joanne Maria Alayados. Shabir Ahmed, Terrence Andre Aiken, Godwin Ajawala, Gertrude M. Alagero, Andrew Alameno, Margaret Ann Alario, Gary M. Albero, John Leslie Albert, Peter Alderman, Jacqueline Delane Aldridge, David D. Alger, Sarah Ali Escarcega, Ernest Ali Kakos,
Edward L. Allegretto,
Eric Allen,
Joseph Ryan Allen,
Richard Dennis Allen,
Richard Leonard Allen,
Christopher E. Allingham,
Anna Allison,
Janet M. Alonzo,
Arturo Alva Marino,
Anthony Alvarado,
Antonio Javier Alvarez,
Victoria Alvarez Burrito,
Telmo E. Alver,
Cesar Almaranto Alviar,
Tariq Amanula,
Angelo Amaranto,
James M. Amato,
Joseph Amatuccio,
Christopher Charles Amoroso,
Kazuhiro Anai,
Calixto Anaya Jr.,
Joseph Anchundia,
Kermit Charles Anderson,
Yvette Constance Anderson,
John Andrea Kehoe,
Michael Rourke Andrews,
Jean Ann Andrucki,
Siunia Ang,
Joseph Angelini Jr.,
Joseph Angelini Sr.,
David Lawrence Angel,
Laura Angeletta,
Doreen J. Angrasani,
Peter Paul Apollo,
Sima A. Oyama,
Frank Thomas Acalino,
Faustina Apasal Jr.,
David Arce,
Patrick Michael Aranios,
Louis Arena,
Michael George Arsinski,
Adam P. Arias,
Barbara Jean Arestigi,
Jack Charles Aron,
Michael Armstrong,
Richard Avery Aronoff,
Joshua Aron,
Yafet Jesse Artie,
Myra Joe Aronson,
Carl Asaro,
Patrick Asante,
Michael Edward Asher,
Michael Asiak,
Thomas J. Ashton,
Janice Marie Ashley,
Will O. Asitenbag,
Greg Arthur Atlas,
Gerard T. Atwood,
James Audifred,
Lois Frank Adversano Jr.,
Ezra Aviles,
Sandy Ayala,
Arlene T. Babakitis,
Eustace P. Bacchus,
John J. Badagliaca,
Jane Ellen Bassler,
Robert J. Byerwalter,
Andrew J. Bailey,
Brett T. Bailey,
Garnett Edward Bailey,
Tatiana Bakalinskaya,
Michael S. Bax,
Sharon M. Balkan,
Michael Andrew Bain,
Catherine Bantis,
Gerard Baptist,
Walter Barron,
Gerard A. Barbara,
Paul Vincent Barbaro,
James William Barbella,
Ivan Kirillos F. Barbosa,
Victor Daniel Barbosa,
Christine Barbudo,
Colleen Ann Barkow,
Davo Michael Barkway,
Matthew Barnes,
Sheila Patricia Barnes,
Evan J. Barron,
Renee Barrett Arjun,
Natalie Barrios La Cruz,
Arthur Thaddeus Berry,
Diane G. Berry,
Maurice Vincent Berry,
Scott D. Bart,
Carlton W. Bartles,
Guy Bartfi,
Ina B. Basina,
Alicia Basmajian,
Kenneth William Basnicki,
Stephen Bates,
Paul James Batiglia,
Walter David Bauer Jr.,
Marlene Capito Bautista,
Mark Lawrence Bavis,
Jasper Baxter,
Michelle Beal,
Paul Frederick Biatini,
Jane S. Beatty,
Lawrence Ira Beck,
Manette Marie Beckles,
Carl John Badigian,
Michael Ernest Beekman,
Maria A. Bear,
Yelena Belavosky,
Nina Patrice Bell,
Debbie Bellows,
Stephen Elliott Belson,
Paul M. Benedetti,
Denise Lenore Benedetto,
Maria Bangachea,
Brian Craig Bennett,
Eric L. Bennett,
Oliver Duncan Bennett,
Margaret L. Benson,
Dominic J. Berardi,
James Patrick Berger,
Stephen Howard Berger,
John A. Burton,
Alvin Bergson,
Daniel Bergstein,
Graham Andrew Berkeley,
Michael J. Berkeley,
Donna M. Bernards,
David W. Bernard,
William Bernstein,
David M. Berry,
David S. Berry,
Joseph J. Berry,
William Reed Bethke,
Timothy Betterly,
Carolyn Biong,
Edward Frank Baye,
Paul Bayer,
Anil Tahiram Baneve,
Bella J. Bokan,
Shimi D. Vijayalaisen,
Peter Alexander Billfield,
William G. Bigart,
Brian Belcher,
Carl Vincent Binney,
Gary Eugene Bird,
Joshua David Birnbaum,
George John Bishop,
Jeffrey Donald Bittner,
Albert Baliwa Blackman Jr.,
Christopher Joseph Blackwell,
Susan Leigh Blair,
Harry Blanding Jr.,
Janice Lee Blaney,
Craig Michael Blass,
Rita Blau,
Richard Middleton Blood Jr.,
Michael Andrew Bucardi,
John P. Baki,
Michael Leopoldo Buccino,
Susan M. Buccino,
Bruce D. Bowen.
My name is Marianne Keene. My stepfather, Franco Lalama, was an engineer for the Port Authority. He worked on the 64th floor of the World Trade Center. I read this for his memorial. I don't remember the last time I told him that I loved him. I would give anything to go back to the morning of September 11th and tell him how much I appreciate everything he's done for me. But I think he knows that now. In my eyes, he's died a hero. And how much more could you ask for? There's a quote that pretty much speaks for itself. You never lose anything. Not really. Things, people, they go away sooner or later. You can't hold them any more than you can hold the moonlight. But if they've touched you, if they're inside of you, then they're still yours. Frank, as I look back on these days, I realize how much I'll truly miss you and how much I truly love you. You were the best father I could ever ask for. I miss you, and I hope you didn't hurt too much. Love, Marianne.
Mary Catherine Bofa.
Nicholas Andrew Bogdan.
Darren Christopher Bohan.
Lawrence Francis Boisseau.
Vincent M. Bolin Jr.
Tori Belarchi.
Alan Bondarkenko.
Andre Bonhier Jr.
Colin Arthur Bonet.
Frank Bonamo.
Yvonne Lucia Bonanno.
Genevieve Bonsignore.
Sean Booker.
Kelly Ann Booms.
Sherry Ann Bordeaux.
Christine Bordenabe.
Martin Borziski.
Richard Edward Bosco.
Claus Bolte.
Carol Marie Bouchard.
John Bolton.
Francisco Eligio Bordier.
Thomas Harold Bowden Jr.
Kimberly S. Bowers.
Veronique Nicole Bowers.
Sean Edward Bowman Jr.
Larry Bowman.
Kevin L. Bowser.
Gary R. Box.
Gennady Boyarsky.
Pamela Boyce.
Michael Boyle.
Alfred Braca.
Kevin Bracken.
David Brian Brady.
Alexander Broginski.
Nicholas W. Brandemarty.
Daniel Raymond Brandhorst.
David Reed Gamboa Brandhurst.
Michelle Renee Bratton.
Patricia Brout.
Lydia E. Bravo.
Ronald Michael Breitweiser.
Edward A. Brennan III.
Francis Henry Brennan.
Michael E. Brennan.
Peter Brennan.
Thomas M. Brennan.
Daniel J. Bracco.
Gary Lee Bright.
Jonathan Briley.
Mark A. Brisman.
Paul Gary Bristow.
Mark Francis Broderick.
Henry Charles Broghammer.
Keith A. Broomfield.
Janice Shalewis Brown.
Lloyd Stanford Brown.
Patrick J. Brown.
Bettina Brown.
Mark Bruce.
Ronald George Bruherty.
Andrew Brune.
Vincent Brunton.
Ronald Paul Buca.
Brandon J. Buchanan.
Gregory Joseph Buck.
Dennis Buckley.
Nancy Claire Buesch.
Patrick Joseph Booz.
John Edwards Bulaga Jr.
Stephen Boonin. William Francis Burke Jr. Matthew J. Burke.
Thomas Daniel Burke.
Donald J. Burns.
Kathleen Ann Burns.
Keith James Burns.
John Patrick Burnside.
Irina Buslow.
Milton G. Bustillo.
Thomas M. Butler.
Patrick Byrne.
Jesus Neptali Cabezas,
Lillian Caceres,
Brian Joseph Cachia,
Stephen Dennis Gafiero Jr.,
Richard M. Cagiano,
Cecile Morella Cacuicla,
John Brett Cahill,
Michael John Cahill,
Scott Walter Cahill,
Thomas Joseph Cahill,
George Kane,
Salvatore B. Calabro,
Joseph Calendrijo,
Philip B. Calgano,
Edward Calderon,
Kenneth Marcus Caldwell,
Dominic Enrico Calia,
Felix Calixte,
Frank Callahan,
Leanne Callahan,
Luigi Calvi,
Rocco Camas,
Michael F. Camarada,
David Otay Campbell,
Jeffrey Thomas Campbell,
Jill Marie Campbell,
Robert Arthur Campbell,
Patricia Campbell,
Sean Thomas Canavan,
John A. Candela,
Vincent Cangelosi,
Stephen J. Cangelosi,
Lisa Bella Canova,
Brian Canarazzo,
Michael Canty,
Louis Anthony Calvarici,
Jonathan Neff Capello,
James Christopher Capers,
Richard Michael Caproni,
Jose Manuel Cardona,
Dennis M. Carey,
Steve Carey,
Edward Carlino,
Michael Scott Carlo,
David G. Carlone,
Rosemary C. Carlson,
Mark Stephen Carney,
Joyce Ann Carpenetto,
Ivan Luis Carpio Batista,
Jeremy M. Carrington,
Michael Carroll,
Peter Carroll,
James Joseph Carson Jr.,
Christopher Mikel Costigan,
Marcia Cecil Carter,
James Marcel Cartier,
Vivian Casaldic,
John Francis Casaza,
Paul R. Cascio,
Margarita Casillas,
Thomas Anthony Casoria,
William Otto Caspar,
Alejandro Castaño,
Herman Castillo Garcia,
Arcelia Castillo,
Leonard M. Castellano,
Jose Ramon Castro,
Richard G. Cattarelli,
Christopher Sean Caton,
Robert John Caulfield,
Mary Teresa Caulfield,
Judson Cavalier,
Michael Joseph Coley,
Jason David Kane,
Juan Amando Sebilio,
Jason Michael Cefalu,
Thomas Joseph Selleck,
Anna Mercedes Centennial,
Joni Sesta,
Jeffrey Mark Chernoff,
Swarna Shelasny,
William Chalkoff,
Lu,
Charles Lawrence Chan,
Mandy Chang,
Mark Lawrence Charette,
Gregorio Manuel Chavez,
Delrose E. Chatham,
Pedro Franklin Checo,
Douglas McMillan Cherry,
Stephen Patrick Cherry,
Vernon Paul Cherry,
Nestor Julio Chevalier,
Swade Chevalier,
Alexander H. Chang,
Dorothy J. Kikar Piaro,
Luis Alfonso Chimbo,
Robert Chit,
Wing Y. Ching,
Nicholas Paul Chafalo,
John Chipura, Peter A. Carcarillo, Catherine Charles, Kiyun P. Cho, Abul K. Chowdhury, Mohammed Salahuddin Chaudhuri, Kirsten L. Christophe, Pamela Chu, Stephen Chuknik, Y. Chung, Christopher Chiafardini, Alex F. Ciccone, Francis Ann Chilente,
Elaine Chilo,
Nestor Andre Citron III,
Edna Cintron,
Robert Dominic Siri,
Juan Pablo Cisneros Alvarez,
Benjamin Keith Clark,
Eugene Clark,
Gregory Allen Clark,
Manny Leroy Clark,
Thomas R. Clark,
Christopher Robert Clark,
Donna Marie Clark,
Michael J. Clark,
Surya Rachel Emma Clark,
Kevin Francis Cleary,
James D. Clear,
Jeffrey W. Cloud,
Susan Marie Klein,
Stephen Coakley,
Jeffrey Allen Cole,
Patricia A. Cody,
Daniel Michael Coffey,
Jason M. Coffey,
Florence G. Cohen,
Kevin Sanford Cohen,
Anthony Joseph Caladonato,
Mark Joseph Caleo,
Stephen J. Coleo,
Christopher M. Colasanti,
Kevin Nathaniel Colbert,
Michael P. Colbert,
Keith E. Coleman,
Scott Thomas Coleman,
Tarrell Coleman,
Liam Joseph Colhoun,
Robert D. Collin,
Robert J. Cole,
Gene Collin,
John Michael Collins,
Michael L. Collins,
Thomas J. Collins,
Joseph Collison,
Jeffrey Dwayne Coleman,
Patricia Malia Kolodner,
Linda M. Colon,
Saul E. Colon,
Ronald Edward Comer,
Sandra Jolene Conati Brace,
Jaime Concepcion,
Albert Condé,
Denise Connolly,
Susan P. Conlon,
Margaret Mary Connor,
Cynthia Marie Lease Connolly,
John E. Connolly Jr.,
James Lee Connor,
Jonathan M. Connors,
Kevin Patrick Connors,
Kevin F. Conroy,
Jose Manuel Contreras Fernandez,
Brenda E. Conway,
Dennis Michael Cook,
Helen D. Cook,
Jeffrey W. Combs,
John A. Cooper,
Joseph John Capo, Jr.,
Gerard J. Coppola,
Joseph Albert Corbett,
John J. Corcoran III,
Alejandro Cordero,
Robert Cordiz,
Ruben D. Correa,
Danny A. Correa Gutierrez,
James J. Corrigan,
Carlos Cortez,
Kevin Cosgrove,
Dolores Marie Costa,
Dina Alexandra Costanza,
Charles Gregory Costello Jr.,
Michael S. Costello,
Conrad K. Catoy,
Martin J. Coughlin,
John Gerard Coughlin,
Timothy J. Coughlin,
James E. Cove,
Andre Cox,
Frederick John Cox,
James Raymond Coyle,
Michelle Coyle Eula,
Anne Marie Kramer,
Christopher S. Kramer,
Denise Elizabeth Krant,
James Leslie Crawford Jr.,
Robert James Crawford,
Tara Kathleen Creamer,
Joanne Mary Cregan,
Lucy Crofazzi,
John A. Crishy,
Daniel Hal Chrisman,
Dennis Cross,
Kevin Raymond Crotty,
Thomas G. Crotty,
John Crow,
Wells Ramey Crowther,
Robert L. Cruikshank,
John Robert Cruz,
Grace U. Chua,
Kenneth John Cubas,
Francisco Cruz Cubero,
Thelma Cuccinello,
Richard J. Cudina,
Neil James Cudmore,
Thomas Patrick Cullen III,
Joyce Cummings,
Brian Thomas Cummins,
Michael Cunningham,
Robert Curatolo,
Lawrence Damian Cutria,
Paul Dario Curioli,
Patrick Curavan,
Andrew Peter Charles Curry Green,
Beverly Curry,
Michael S. Curtin,
Gavin Cushney,
John Delaria,
Vincent Gerard Damadeo,
Jack D'Ambrosi,
Mary D. Antonio,
Edward A. Diatri,
Michael D. Dioria,
Michael Jude Desposito,
Manuel John Damota,
Caleb Aaron Black,
Carlos S. Da Costa,
Joao Alberto da Fonseca,
Brian Paul Dale,
Thomas A. Damaskinos,
Janine Marie DiMano Jones,
Patrick W. Danahy,
Nana Danso,
Vincent Dons,
Dwight Donald Darcy,
Elizabeth Ann Darling,
Annette Andrea Dataram,
Lawrence Davidson,
Michael Allen Davidson,
Scott Matthew Davidson,
Titus Davidson,
New Yorka Davila,
Clinton Davis,
Wayne Terriel Davis,
Anthony Richard Dawson,
Calvin Dawson,
Edward James Day,
Dorothy Alma Diarejo,
J. Sorrell M. de Chavez,
Jennifer De Jesus,
Monica E. de Jesus,
Neridia De Jesus,
Emerita de la Peña,
Azucente Maria de la Torre,
Jose Nicolas de Peña,
David Paul de Rubio,
Jamal Legaze de Santis,
Christian Louis De Simone,
Melanie Louise de Vere,
William Thomas Dean,
Robert J. DeAngelis Jr.,
Thomas Patrick DeAngelis,
Tara E. DeBeck,
Anna Maria DeBin,
James V. de Blasi,
Paul DeCola,
Simon Marash de Dufkash,
Jason DeFazio,
David A. DeFeo,
Manuel Davaya Jr.,
Donald Arthur de la Peña,
Vito Joseph DeLeon,
Danielle Ann DeLee.
God bless them all.
Joseph A. de la Pietra,
Andrea Della Bella,
Palmena Delegante,
Colleen N. Delary,
Francis Albert de Martinez,
Anthony Damas,
Martin N. de Mayo,
Francis Deming,
Carol K. Demetz,
Kevin Dennis,
Thomas F. Dines,
Jean De Palma,
Robert John Durrani,
Michael DeRienzo,
Edward Desimoni III,
Andrew Desperito,
Sandy N. Dewell,
Jerry DeVito,
Robert P. DeBeth Jr.,
Dennis Lauren Devlin,
Gerald Dewan,
Sulamanali Kasamali Danani,
Patricia Florence DeSharon,
Deborah Ann DiMartino.
Michael Luis D'Agostino,
Matthew Diaz.
and Nancy Diaz.
Rafael Arturo Diaz.
God bless all of us.
Michael A. Diaz Piedra III,
Judith Berkes Diaz Sierra,
Joseph Dermot Dickey Jr.,
Lawrence Patrick Dickerson,
Michael D. Deal,
John DeFato,
Vincent DeFazio,
Carl Anthony DeFranco,
Donald DeFranco,
David DeMilingo,
Stephen Patrick Dimino,
William John Demling,
Marisa DiNardo Sharp,
Christopher M. DeCuff,
Jeffrey Mark Dingle,
Anthony D'Anzio,
George DiPasquale,
Joseph DiPilato,
Douglas Fran DiStefano,
Don Demerico D. Leo,
Ramsey A. Doney,
John Joseph Doherty,
Melissa C. Doy,
Brendan Dolan,
Neil Matthew Dollard,
Joseph Domenico,
Benilda Pascua Domingo,
Alberto Dominguez,
Carlos Dominguez,
Jerome Mark Patrick Dominguez.
Kevin W. Donnelly,
Jacqueline Donovan.
Stephen Scott Dorff,
Thomas Dowd.
Kevin Dowdell,
Mary Yolanda Dowling.
Raymond Matthew Downey,
Frank Joseph Doyle.
Joseph Michael Doyle,
Randall W. Drake.
Stephen Patrick Driscoll,
Myrna A. Duarte.
Luke A. Dudek,
Christopher Michael Duffy.
Gerard Duffy,
Michael Joseph Duffy.
Thomas W. Duffy,
Antoinette Duger.
Sariv Ducat,
Christopher Joseph Dunn.
Richard Anthony Dunstan,
Patrick Thomas Dwyer.
Joseph Anthony Ecobachi,
John Bruce Eagleson.
Robert Douglas Eden,
Dean Philip Eberling.
Margaret Ruth Echterman,
Paul Robert Eckna.
Constantine Economus,
Dennis Michael Edwards.
Michael Hardy Edwards,
Mary Lynn Edwards Angel.
Christine Egan,
Martin J. Egan Jr.
Lisa Egan,
Michael Egan.
Samantha Martin Egan,
Carol Eggert.
Lisa Karen Ehrlich,
John Ernst Eichler.
Eric Adam Eisenberg,
Daphne Ferlinda Elder.
Michael J. Alferez,
Mark Joseph Ellis.
Valerie Silver Ellis,
Albert Alfie William Elmary.
Edgar Hendricks Emery Jr.,
Doris Suk Yuen Eng.
Christopher Epps,
Ulf Ram Erickson.
Erwin L. Erker,
William John Irwin.
Jose Espinal,
Fanny Espinoza.
Bridget Ann Esposito,
Francis Esposito,
Michael Esposito,
William Esposito,
Ruben Eskelin Jr.,
Sadie Etty,
Barbara G. Etzold,
Eric Brian Evans,
Robert Evans,
Meredith Emily June Ewart,
Catherine K. Fagan,
Patricia Mary Fagan,
Keith George Fairbairn,
Sandra Fajardo Smith,
William Lawrence Fallon Jr.,
William F. Fallon,
Anthony J. Filoni Jr.,
Dolores Bridget Fanelli,
Robert John Fang, Kathleen Ann Farragher,
Thomas Farino,
Nancy Carol Farley,
Paige Marie Farley Hackle,
Elizabeth Ann Farmer,
Douglas John Farnham,
John G. Farrell.
John W. Farrell. Terrence Patrick Farrell.
Joseph D. Farrelly.
Thomas Patrick Farrelly.
Syed Abdul Fattah.
Christopher Edward Fawnin.
Whitney R. Faulkner.
Shannon Marie Faber.
Bernard D. Favusa.
Robert Fazio Jr.
Ronald Carl Fazio.
William Feehan.
Francis Jude Feely.
Perhaps the public venues that have changed most dramatically in the past year are the country's 429 commercial airports. The resumption of a normal flying schedule after the September attacks was coupled with immediate and visible increased security. The government ordered airlines to reinforce cockpit doors, giving them a deadline of spring 2003. The newly created Transportation Safety Administration was given until this year's end to install explosive screening for all luggage. Passenger screening was immediately beefed up. Private security companies will soon be replaced by agents from the TSA, who should be operating in all airports by this November. And the number of air marshals, undercover armed guards posing as passengers, was substantially increased. Dramatic changes in security procedures were needed in part just to restore the confidence of a jittery flying public. 1 year on, most people seem accustomed and content with the measures.
I don't feel worried about it at all, and I think it's pretty good. And they check my bags all.
September 11th is unfortunately a day that will now always be remembered. But I think we're a nation that refuses to dwell on our past sorrows. We rebuild, we move on to the promise of tomorrow. And just like at the Battle of Brandywine, our flag will fly free. And just like at Lake Champlain, we will be victorious. As we go forward, let us remember that this struggle is about the liberties that we hold and that are held by freedom-loving people around the world that we hold dear. It's our freedom that makes us great. We must not and we will not fail to safeguard this precious gift. May God bless you and your wonderful families, and may God continue to bless America.
They serve this country honorably, a people strong and blessed. Never ones to compromise, they strive to be the best. This nation is the land they love, to honor and obey, qualities that make someone a hero for today. And the silent cheering of the crowd somehow tells them that we're proud. And as we bend our knees to pray, may we find a way to say thanks to a hero for today. When you stand for freedom, you sometimes stand alone, defending our America on shores so far from home. Courageous moments set in time, and a flag that points the way. on this lifelong journey of a hero for today. And the silent cheering of the crowd somehow tells them that we're proud. And as we bend our knees to pray, may we find a way to say, thanks to a hero, thanks to a hero. And the silent cheering of the crowd somehow tells them that we're proud. And as we bend our knees to pray, may we find a way to say, thanks to a hero for today. And as we bend our knees to pray, may we find a way to say, thanks to a hero, a freedom-loving hero. Thanks to a hero for
Ladies and gentlemen, Secretary Rumsfeld.
President Bush, Mrs. Bush, members of Congress and the Cabinet, distinguished foreign guests, family members, General Myers, and the Pentagon family, welcome. We're here today to honor those who died in this place and to rededicate ourselves to the cause for which they gave their lives, the cause of human liberty. In a sense, we meet on a battlefield. If it does not appear so today, that is because of the singular devotion of the men and women who work day and night to fulfill a solemn vow that not one stone of this building would be out of place on this anniversary. We thank you for your dedication and your accomplishment. But 1 year ago, this was a battle zone, a scene of billowing smoke, towering flames, broken rock, and twisted metal. It says much about our nation and the fierceness and resilience of the American people that were we not here now in this solemn ceremony, a visitor passing would see no hint of the terrible events that took place here but 1 year ago today. But we must not forget what happened here. Dedicated men and women came here on a clear September morning to serve their country, and then in an instant were taken from us. We gather today to remember them, but we're here for another purpose as well, to mark that first anniversary of a day that will be remembered by history and commemorated by successive generations, so long as we remain free people. For a battle was joined on that day, a battle still unfolding between a nation of free people and forces that seek to plunge that nation, and indeed the free world, into the darkness of tyranny and terror. We assemble today to ask what has been accomplished in the name of those who died and on behalf of those who live. 1 month after the attacks, our Commander-in-Chief came here to the Pentagon to speak to us, to console us, and to encourage us for the struggle still ahead. Of the terrorists, Mr. President, you said they dwell in dark corners. With patience, the terrorists will be pursued. They will be isolated, surrounded, until there's no place to run, to hide, or to rest. Well, to the men and women of the armed forces, this you are doing. In Afghanistan, you have rescued a country and liberated a people. You've rooted the terrorists out of the caves and the shadows. You are performing heroically. Know that the American people value what you do for our country. past year, some of your comrades have given their lives in the defense of freedom, and we remember each of them today. And to their families, we offer our sympathy and thank you for the love of country that you instilled in each of those extraordinary human beings. And we remember in our prayers each of the Allied soldiers who have fallen on the field of battle. From the first moments of this struggle, America knew she was not alone. Support came from every corner of the world. Mr. President, the coalition you have assembled is truly remarkable. Some 90 nations, literally half of the world, have joined in this effort, the greatest military coalition ever assembled in human history. Many coalition partners are here today, and we say to you, thank you for standing with us. And please extend our gratitude to your fellow citizens. Tell them how much we value their friendship and their steadfastness. In the past year, we've been awakened to our vulnerabilities, made conscious of the dangers we face in this new century. That awakening came at a terrible price, but the terrorists aspire to even greater destruction. Unless they are stopped, the light of history will fade from this day, turning its gaze instead to subsequent days, when not thousands, but tens of thousands of lives could be lost. The road ahead is long, but while we have not yet achieved victory, we know in one important sense that the terrorists who attacked us have already been defeated. They were defeated before the first shot was fired in Afghanistan. They were defeated because they failed utterly to achieve their objectives. The terrorists wanted September 11th to be a day when innocents died. Instead, it was a day when heroes were born. The terrorists wanted September 11th to be a day when hatred reigned. Instead, it was a day when we witnessed love beyond measure. We saw it in the rescue workers who rushed into burning buildings to save lives, knowing they might never emerge. We saw it in the passengers on Flight 93, who learned what was happening and decided it was better to fight and die in a grassy Pennsylvania field than allow the terrorists to reach our nation's capital. And we've seen it every day since, in the service of those who have risked their lives and given their lives to stop terrorism. The terrorists wanted September 11th to be a day when free people learned fear and self-doubt. Instead, it was a day when a sleeping patriotism was awakened in this country. Even as they wiped away their tears, Americans unfurled their flags. They flew them from seemingly every house and car, in schools and parks and playing fields. And in town squares all across the nation, citizens gathered to light candles and to pray. The fruits of September 11th were not hatred, fear, or self-doubt, as the terrorists intended. They were charity and courage, patience and perseverance. We have cause for hope because we have seen evil reveal itself in our midst and then watch it humbled by the power of simple goodness. From the construction workers who rebuilt this wounded building stone by stone, to those wounded here who have inspired our nation with their courageous struggle to recover, to the thousands of school children who sent pictures to comfort us and to lift our spirits, and they did lift our spirits. The American people responded in ways that stir the soul. Many Americans ask, what can we do to help? The answer is you have helped. You've prayed, you've volunteered, you've given your sons and daughters to defend our freedom. We will win this war on terror. We will win no matter how long or hard or difficult or costly it is. One day, our grandchildren will look back on this time and ask, how was the war on terror won? And we will tell them about the brave men and women who gave their lives so that we could live in freedom. We remember them today, and to their families, many of whom are here, know that we have not forgotten. But let us do more than remember. The greatest honor we can bestow on them, the best memorial we can fashion for them, is to protect our liberty and secure it for generations to come. That is our charge. That is our responsibility. May God bless our nation in the struggle ahead.
On an island in the harbor, Lady Liberty's darkest day, terror rose against our land, and evil had its way. We watched those two strong towers come crashing to the ground. Innocent lives were sacrificed in rubble on the ground. We stood in awe and disbelief at those 1,000s fell. In the midst of all this horror, in the midst of all this hell, we've bound our spirits in resolve to answer freedom's call. This is America, we'll rise above it all. United in our victory, united in our cause. We are Americans, united as we all. United in our cause, we are Americans, united in us all. We'll bind up our wounded, grieve for those who died, praise our heroes' efforts, and sing out with pride. God shed his grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood. For we're united in our victory, united in our cause. We'll stand against all enemies. Liberty has no walls. We're stronger than those towers. This country will not fall.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States.
One year ago, men and women and children were killed here because they were Americans. And because this place is a symbol to the world of our country's might and resolve. Today we remember each life. We rededicate this proud symbol, and we renew our commitment to win the war that began here. the terrorists chose this target hoping to demoralize our country. They failed. Within minutes, brave men and women were rescuing their comrades. Within hours, in this building, the planning began for a military response. Within weeks, commands went forth from this place that would clear terrorist camps and caves and liberate a nation, and within 1 year, this great building has been made whole once again. Many civilian and military personnel have now returned to offices they occupied before the attack. The Pentagon is a working building, not a memorial. Yet the memories of a great tragedy linger here. And for all who knew loss here, life is not the same. The 184 whose lives were taken in this place, veterans and recruits, soldiers and civilians, husbands and wives, parents and children, left behind family and friends whose loss cannot be weighed. The murder of innocents cannot be explained, only endured. And though they died in tragedy, they did not die in vain. Their loss has moved a nation to action in a cause to defend other innocent lives across the world. This war is waged on many fronts. We've captured more than 2,000 terrorists. A larger number of killers have met their end in combat. We've seized millions in terrorist assets. We're reorganizing the federal government to protect the homeland. Yet there's a great deal left to do. And the greatest tasks and the greatest dangers will fall to the armed forces of the United States. I came to the presidency with respect for all who wear America's uniform. Every day, as your Commander-in-Chief, my respect and that of our nation has deepened. I have great confidence in every man and woman who wears the uniform of the United States of America. I am proud of all who have fought on my orders, and this nation honors all who died in our cause. Wherever our military is sent in the world, you bring hope and justice and promise of a better day. You are worthy of the traditions you represent, the uniform you wear, the ideals you serve. America is counting on you, and our confidence is well placed. What happened to our nation on a September day set in motion the first great struggle of a new century. The enemies who struck us are determined, and they're resourceful. They will not be stopped by a sense of decency or a hint of conscience, but they will be stopped. a greater force is amassed against them. They're opposed by freedom-loving people in many lands. They're opposed by our allies who have fought bravely by our side. And as long as terrorists and dictators plot against our lives and our liberty, they will be opposed by the United States Army, Navy, Coast Guard, Air Force, and Marines. We fight as Americans have always fought, not just for ourselves, but for the security of our friends and for peace in the world. We fight for the dignity of life against fanatics who feel no shame in murder. We fight to protect the innocent so that the lawless and the merciless will not inherit the earth. At every turn of this war, we will always remember how it began and who fell first. The thousands who went to work, boarded a plane, or reported to their post. Today, the nation pays our respects to them. Here and in Pennsylvania and in New York, we honor each name and each life. We ask God to bring comfort to every home where they are loved and missed. And on this day, and on every day, may He watch over the United States of America. God bless.
Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the benediction delivered by Rear Admiral Black.
Let us pray. Eternal Lord God, who has given us this good land, help us never to forget our September 11th wake-up call. Lord, you awakened us to a deeper appreciation of freedom's high cost. You awakened us to see the heroism in ordinary Americans who face the horrific with courage conceived in faith's womb. You awakened us to rededicating our lives to making the American dream more than rhetoric, but reality. Lord, forgive us when we have failed to transform our creeds into our deeds. Help us to be up and doing for liberty's cause. May Todd Beamer's words, "Let's roll," illuminate the path ahead. Lord, let us roll toward bringing hope and healing in the midst of despair and hope. Let us roll toward bringing unity where we find division. Let us roll toward bringing your peace on earth. In the days to come, Lord, challenge us when our dreams come true because they are too small. Challenge us when we forget that righteousness brings favor
and that truth crushed to earth will rise again. Challenge us, Lord, when we arrive safely simply because we have sailed too close to the shore. Make us indeed one indivisible nation, sustained by your loving providence, with liberty and justice for all. Amen.
God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with a light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home.
Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in singing God Bless America.
God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my
Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated and remain seated as the dais guests depart and the conclusion of the musical postlude.
President Bush and Mrs. Bush leaving the Pentagon now by helicopter. I believe they're on their way to Pennsylvania to the memorial services there and then on to New York. That flyover you just saw on your screen, going from south to north here over the Washington area, consisted of 4 F-16s from the 113th Wing D.C. Air National Guard, who are based at Andrews Air Force Base here in the Washington area. This concludes our high-definition broadcast of United in Freedom, a rededication of that portion of the Pentagon damaged in the September 11th attack of a year ago, and a remembrance of those who lost their lives both in the Pentagon and on American Airlines Flight 77. Our thanks to our broadcast partner, NHK Japan Broadcasting Corporation, for their beautiful pictures. And thank you for joining us. For PBS, I'm Judy Gruber. Good day.